Hey everybody, it's Dina Rico with the Creativity Cave, and look at this super cute box that I made. This is a hinged lid box, and I actually made it a double hinge. So it kind of opens in a fun way. So I'm going to show you how easy this box is to put together. I actually am a little surprised by how easy it was. And I kind of got the idea for this. I was searching boxes with hinge lids on Pinterest and saw a really cool origami double hinged lid box like this. But cardstock is really hard to fold origami style because it's way too thick. So, and even printed paper is often too thick. So I decided to just kind of alter it a little bit to come up with my own box. So this is what I came up with. I'm going to show you how to put the whole thing together. It's really pretty easy. First of all, you're going to need 2 pieces of 4 by 5 inch paper. You're going to score on the 4-inch side at 1.5 and 2.5. And then on the 5-inch side, you're going to score at 1 and 4. Okay, and then once you've done that, you'll take both of the pieces and then you're going to cut out one of the larger pieces, you know, the rectangle piece, and then just slice on the square piece right here. Okay, so I made a solid line for where you cut. Okay, but the dotted lines all are score lines. Okay, so I've done that. I've done that to this piece. You'll do it to both, but I kept this piece whole so you could see the whole thing. Okay, the bottom, so these are the hinge tops. The bottom of your box is going to be a 4 15/16 by 4 15/16 piece of cardstock, and then you're going to score at 1 inch on all sides, and then just like, you know, you put it together a box, you'll cut on one slit to form your box bottom. Now let me tell you why I have the 4 15/16. So this is the first box I made, and you can see it does not actually close all the way because the box bottom is exactly 3 inches and then the top is wrapped to be 3 inches square. There's a little bit of space that's taken up when you put a layer of cardstock on a layer of cardstock and wrap it. And so to account for that, I just changed the bottom of the box ever so slightly, and then it fits together, as you can see, much better on this one. There's a teeny bit of a gap, but not much. I mean, it's very, very little. So let's go ahead and put ours together. I'll do everything so you can see how the whole thing comes together. First, of course, I'm going to need my trimmer with a scoring blade. And I'll take my box bottom and score at 1 inch on all sides. So I'm going to use the 1 inch mark right over here. Oops, let me pull that down a little so you can see it. Okay, so scoring at 1 inch on all the sides. And then I always kind of go back and forth. That's just me. So there's my score lines. They're a little tricky to see on this cardstock. Then on my next piece, I'm on the 4-inch side, the shorter side, I'm going to score at 1.5. So now we'll move on to this side of the mat. 1.5 and 2.5. Okay. And then we'll turn it 90 degrees and we'll score at 1 inch and at 4 inches. Okay, and we'll do that once more. So again, on the shorter side, 1.5. Oops, I didn't mean to move that. So we scored at 1.5, then we're going to move it over to 2.5. Got all excited. Then we'll turn it 90 degrees and score at 1 and 4. By the way, I just used the 1 inch line here, which is 1 inch, and then when you flip it, it's 4 inches because it's 5 inches across. I hope that makes sense. You just want it 1 inch on either side. Okay, so again, I'm going to take my scissors, or not again, I will take my scissors. Let's see. I was like bringing my piece back because I may or may not have cut this incorrectly more than once. All right, so I'm going to trim off one of the big rectangles and another one of the big rectangles. Okay, and then I'm just going to trim on the square. Trim on the square. All right, do that once more. So again, I like looking at my picture, my sample here. It helps if you draw this when you go to do this, because that's actually how I made my box. And when I didn't follow my drawing, I kept messing up. So I cut one rectangle off of each side and then cut on the square line like that to form my square. Okay, and then on my box bottom, I'm just going to cut on each square, one slit on each square, and then I'm cutting out this little divot, and that just makes your box fold a little bit nicer. And there we go. Okay, as always, when making a box, we'll take and score on all those lines and form our boxes. I like to use liquid glue when I'm adhering boxes. I think it works really well. It sticks better than any kind of adhesive I've used over the long haul. And because my stamp area is in my basement, it tends to be more humid here. So I really like liquid glue because it won't be affected by humidity, which I think is important. Depending on where you live, that may or may not be an issue, but even tear and tape or fast fuse tends to kind of fall apart. So that's why I choose liquid glue. Okay, so we'll just adhere our box, and you can see that's all the glue I'm putting on there. Just hold it for a second, and then it usually stays pretty well. Whenever people use glue, the most common, mistake that I see most often is that you use too much glue. And to kind of alleviate that, if you're getting glue on your hands, you're using too much. You should be able to squeeze this and not have any oozing out the sides. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much glue you should use. It really is amazing how little glue goes a very long way. Okay, so here's my box bottom. Very easy. I'm sure you've all done that before. Now for the box top. Now, this is how it's going to come together onto your box, like so, okay? So I want these two flaps are going to be adhered to the bottom of your box, okay? So I like to do one at a time, and I also like to kind of form this around my box base that I've already done, all right? So I'm just going to, and that verifies that the alignment is correct on everything. Okay, so that looks good. And then I can do my other one. Again, these are very thin. It's not like tons of glue on there. It's a very thin zigzag of glue I'm putting on. So again, here I like to make sure that my box is going to fold up around there. And you can see they come right together on the bottom and form a nice seam. So we just want to make sure that this is all aligned. And that's the other nice thing about glue is you have a little bit of time to wiggle your position before you're fully committed. Okay, now the other thing I like to do, and I should have done this a little earlier, is just like on our box bottom, I like to cut out a little wedge from each of these, and then it just tends to lay a little bit nicer. And I like the look of that. Okay. Then, just like before, we're going to take and adhere the square flap to the rectangle flap, okay? And then I like to do this again around the box, and this just ensures that it's going to close properly, okay? Just give it a good press. and that means now I know that it's oriented correctly. So I'll do my next one. Okay, and put that to the inside. When putting a box together, the most common other mistake I see people do is they glue the wrong flap. It happens. No judgment. Okay, and we'll do the same thing to the other side. We're going to put adhesive right here. And then make sure our box closes. Look at that, it all meets together. Just like it should. I have to say, I am a card maker who occasionally makes boxes, but sometimes they're just kind of fun. I really prefer cards, but I do think that this box is pretty cute, if I can just say. Okay, so there we go. Now, you might notice on my box that I've made here, it's a little different than, and this is actually staying together a little bit tighter. So that's why I really like kind of adhering it together, because this box, around the box base, because this box you can see won't totally lay flat. I'm not 100% sure why that is. So there's a little bit of wiggle on that one. But this looks like it's staying pretty nicely and tight together. And look at how those seams meet much better than this one. So that's why I made that goofy base size. Okay, now let's do the stamping so that we can decorate our box. I'm sorry, I was just mentioning, I did a darker color here, and I think you'll see in the next, you'll see why I did change the color, and then you can decide which one you like better. All right, I've got a scrap of watercolor paper, and I'm going to do a little stamping. So I'm going to use my Stampasaurus, Stamparatus, that's what they're called. I think I'm going to have to call it a Stampasaurus just because it's kind of funny. So I'm using a stamp from the Petal palette suite, which by the way is my favorite in the Occasions catalog. And I'm going to stamp it down here at the bottom, and I'll show you why I'm doing that in just a second. I'm going to line this up. Let's see, how did I do this? I guess it doesn't really matter, but I just want to make sure I have it in the right spot. I'm going to line this up along the bottom of my ruler and then add my magnet here. I recommend using one magnet at a time so that you don't accidentally smack them together because they can break. Okay, now I'm also using this hinge at the top rather than the one on the side. And the reason is because this will stamp down on my paper much better. And actually, I do need to move it down. Well, actually, no, I don't. I'll leave it. So I've got it on the ruler. And then I want to stamp it about there. Okay, so I'll pick it up. All right. And now I'm going to stamp this with basic black ink. And what did I do? Here it is. I always lose an ink pad when stamping. Okay, now the reason I'm using my Stamparatus is because I'm stamping on watercolor paper, and oftentimes I find that that first impression isn't very good. So I want to stamp it a couple more times to really get a nice solid line on my image because of the texture of the watercolor paper. Now you'll also note that it's never going to be 100% solid because this is sort of a watercolory image, so it's not completely solid, but I think you can see it's already getting better, and this should be plenty. There we go. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to flip my Stamparatus over like this because I'm going to stamp a different stamp on here. I'm going to switch my bar to down here, and I've got this little stamp that I'm going to stamp, like I'm going to pick up and stamp right there. Okay, this time I'm going to use basic gray ink, and I don't think it matters too much if this, well, that stamped pretty well. Okay, now I'm going to do the hinge step, and I'm going to move this down a hinge. Oh, I think we're going to move 2 hinges just so there's enough room. Nope, that was too much. Okay. We're not going to do it that way. Let's see if we can do it this way. No, never mind. we're just going to use a block. The size of this image isn't quite right, and I don't think I lined it up very well on the first go. So we'll stamp it again there. That's good. All right. So I'm going to watercolor these two images, and then we'll die cut them and put our box together. Okay. So if you registered for your Stamparatus or reserved your Stamparatus, I heard that the second round is coming out next week. I'm so excited. Oh, so next I want to watercolor with these 4 colors. I've got Pool Party, Pear Pizzazz, Calypso Coral, and Real Red. The Real Red is just to give a little punch to the Calypso Coral. I've got a fuzzy thing on here. Let's see if I can get rid of that.
Punch.
Okay. And then we'll do our Pear Pizzazz. And I'll do this leaf. And then I'm going to do the leaves on here. So whenever I watercolor, I like to kind of do a wash over the whole area, and then I'm going to come back in and add a little bit darker color to highlight. Add some depth and dimension. I think I need to clean my lid of my ink pad out. It's kind of dirty. Okay. Next, I'll take and switch over to my coral colors. The watercoloring on this is pretty basic, but it's very pretty. So I've got Calypso Coral, and then I'm going to finish it off with a little bit of Real Red at the end. So I'll just bring my box back in so you can see. So for the Calypso Coral, I'm just going to kind of go over the whole flower again with a nice light layer of color. And this allows for the blending to be really nice. Okay, then I'm going to come and close to the center of each petal, I want a darker kind of layer. So you can see I'm just going to add a little bit more dark to the base of each petal, and what that does is it creates some really nice shading, and it's going to blend out a little bit, so that's why I'm going to add a little bit more color. So we want it darkest in the center of our flower and then lightest at the tip. And sometimes I even leave a little bit of white space just to really kind of punch that shading up. But it's up to you. Okay, now I'll really give it a good bit of shading with this red. Careful, because red can go a long way. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. I'm just wiping my brush off and doing just a little more color. Okay, those look good. I'm going to die cut these and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my 3 flower pieces die cut. I also die cut one of the label stamp that punch, or framelit. Oh my gosh, words are hard. Framelit, and I'm going to stamp from the heart on here. And then I'm going to take, and I have the piece that I'm going to mount all these on. I'm going to stamp a little bit. So I've got my hardwood background stamp. It looks like wood grain. I'm just going to ink the corner of that up a little bit and place a piece of cardstock on here, and then I'll just use a block to kind of rub on there, and there's my stamping. Set that aside, and I'm going to create a little pattern on the background. You can't see it a ton, but it's actually on there really cute. I made polka dots, and I just used a sponge dauber to do that, and some of the darker gray, the basic gray ink. So I'm just going to stamp polka dots on here, like so. I probably should have put scrap paper down. Oh well. So this is super easy to do. I'm just one daub. Then we'll do that. Okay. Then I'll take and sponge the edges as well, just to kind of make this a little shabby chic-y. There we go. All right. Now to finish off my card, I'm just going to adhere my different pieces. First off, I want to take this piece and pop it up with some dimensionals. Oops. Okay. So I'll kind of set that right along, kind of on the diagonal here. And then I'm going to wiggle these flowers a little bit, just to give them some dimension so they're not completely flat. And I'll probably even snip off one of these so I can kind of tuck it. The stem gets in my way. So I'm just going to kind of tuck them in like that. And then of course I'll place my sentiment right over the top. And I think I kind of tucked it in, yeah, like that. I'm going to pop up my sentiment also, just because that looks so pretty. I'm going to put these dimensionals a little closer, so I'm not sure where they'll hit on my box. Okay, and then I'll use a little fast fuse to tack these in place. But I love the contrast of the colors on here. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to embellish these with, I did pearls on here. I wonder if rhinestones would be fun. We'll try rhinestones on this box, and then you can tell me which you like the best. So I'll just put a little, I gotta use my scissors for this, a little rhinestone in a few spots. I'll take a big one for this bottom flower because it's gonna kind of be tucked behind a little. And then a couple little ones for right here. I think these are kind of fun. Then last but not least, we're going to add a little bit of Clear Wink of Stella Spritz to the box. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to adhere this to my box. Now this is the most important part of the entire process. You need to put adhesive only on 1/2 of the box, because the other half will keep it permanently closed otherwise. And of course you don't want to have to ruin the box to get into it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then here's where the true magic happens. I'm going to take my Clear Wink of Stella, I'm going to just smack it against something, and I'm going to put a whole bunch of shimmer on here. And then when you pick it up, can you see all of that shimmer? It's so pretty. So I hope you've loved this box tutorial, and you can tell me which one you like better, the darker box or the lighter. I think I might actually like the lighter box now that I look at it, but there we go. Those are my boxes. Thank you so much for joining me. Of course, if you would like to purchase any of the supplies to make this beautiful box, I would appreciate your business, and I would love to be your demonstrator. I have a wonderful VIP rewards program for my customers that I would love to invite you to, and all you need to do is purchase through my online store to qualify. I also have an online class using the Petal Palette Suite coming up. You can register for it. There's going to be a link in the description of this video, along with the links to the products that I've used. Thank you so much for stamping with me today, guys. Have a great day. Bye!